Okay,
Hello, this is Chris from
so here we
HaloFollower.
are. Welcome to the Spiteful X Chris from HaloFollower dramatic erotica reading. Joining me today is our narrator, Yeti for Hire. I will be playing Spiteful. So, and then Halo Man will be Chris from HaloFollower himself. And Buzzsaw, the guy who wrote 7 chapters of Spiteful HaloFollower porn. Congratulations.
I thought I was supposed to be anonymous.
Chapter 1. Paths collide.
Alright, make it louder. Don't eat your
Chapter
mic.
Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Paths collide.
What's up, guys? It's Chris from HaloFollower, here to bring you some Halo E3 news.
Chris paused and turned off his microphone. He knew what he was doing was misleading. There was no such thing as Halo. 243 simply had nothing new to announce this year. His ravenous fanbase, however, thought otherwise. A high-pitched screech rang through the night as Spiteful gave one final effort into an intense, powerful thrust inside the barrel of his life-size Nornfeng model. He slumped in his chair and the legendary Rick fell to the ground, oozing with his juices. He looked up hazily, smiling at the latest picture of one of his many e-girls sent to him. Life was great for Stuart. He got a new car that he raped at least 5 times a day. His channel was raking in money, and the e-girls couldn't stop sending him fully clothed pictures of themselves. Still, people hated on his success.
They're just jealous.
Who could possibly hate the completely perfect iSpiteful? His content is so original and amazing, and not repetitious at all. But that brown man Zandril catalyzed the movement against him. Thinking about Zanny, he quickly looked up at his channel stats and saw that the brown menace was still growing in popularity at iSpiteful's expense. Compared to him, Zanny was skyrocketing. Stuart's head banged on the table, knocking over his papier-mâché Nornfeng model he made in the primary school.
That fucker. He's growing faster than I am.
He growled to himself, kicking his life-size Nornfeng across the room. Then an idea popped into his head. HaloFollower spent all night meticulously copying and pasting bright red circles, arrows, and question marks into his thumbnail. It took him an hour to think of the most appropriate and clickbaity title. His pride, his joy, his baby was left to die in the wastes of YouTube, totally unnoticed and ignored. At the thought of this, he screeched in rage, tore off his Master Chief pajamas, and started thrashing on the floor like a dying fish until he blacked out. An hour later, he woke up at the sound of his phone going off. It was his content slave sending him a message.
Whoever this Spiteful fellow thinks he is, he's gonna get it.
Spiteful slumped behind his car, exhausted from his efforts. Just the other night, he turned his exhaust pipe into a model of a Nornfeng barrel, and has been furiously raping it ever since. As he crawled over into his house to lie down on the couch, Spiteful heard one of the most beautiful and majestic sounds to have graced planet Earth in its billions of years of existence. His beatboxing. Chapter 2. Love at First Spite. The webcam light shone a bright blue as Spiteful answered HaloFollower's call. He was ready for any sort of confrontation, but what he was met with was the complete opposite. As soon as he saw Chris, his heart stopped. Yet, it was different from his normal lust. It was pure, unadulterated joy. It was just like the first time he used the Nornfeng. Throughout the entire meeting, he just nodded and gave simple answers. Stuart wasn't just starstruck, he was in love. On the other end of the camera, Chris was feeling the same emotions. He'd seen pictures of Spiteful in the past, but actually speaking to him, face to face, was a whole new experience. He choked out his words to Stuart, and before he knew it, the call was over. His heart was still racing. Chris closed his laptop and put his face in his hands. How could he go through his revenge?
Don't worry, I got you a ticket too.
Don't worry. Nah, damn it. It's hard. How do you sound like Chris, dude?
Later that night, he called Spiteful to tell him about Gamescom. There was no way Stuart would have said no. If they got along well online, there was no reason that they wouldn't get along in real life.
I don't know about Gamescom. I don't really have money for it.
Don't worry, I got you a ticket too. It's a pass for Everyday Gamescom is up.
Well, I suppose so, but I'll have to drive back after a day. I'm not sleeping in my car.
I got you covered. I booked a hotel room for us.
Oh, that sounds great.
Spiteful blinked a couple times when he said this. He couldn't believe his ears. Did Chris share his feelings for him? This excited him and brought a large smile onto his face. As soon as he started his trip, he was met with misfortune. It turns out, you're not meant to have sex with cars. He had to clean the tailpipe of all the semen that collected inside of it. That alone took about an hour. Spiteful grimaced at the memory of the scent of semen mixed with the exhaust.
Hi, Chris. It's great to finally meet you.
Said Spiteful as he groggily extended his hand. To his delightful surprise, Chris instantly grabbed it. Gripping it tightly, he nearly fainted from the joy of finally meeting Chris for the first time and actually touching him.
Are you okay? You look like you got no sleep.
No, my phone's nearly dead. Fucking hell! No, my phone's nearly dead.
Oh my god.
I had to turn off my mobile data, and I got no sleep. I'm exhausted as all hell.
Well, I have passes that last for the duration of the event. We can go back to the hotel and rest.
Spiteful couldn't believe his ears. He and Chris, together, alone in a room. It was a dream come true. He agreed, and they both left for the hotel. Sleep. Sleep.
Sleep! What?
Chapter 5, Skirmish at Chris's Brown Star. Spent. If there was a word that could perfectly describe how the two were feeling, it was that. Spiteful withdrew his quivering Nornframe from the rocket launcher-shaped cavity that was Chris's asshole, shuddering and beatboxing as he occasionally fired off rounds. The battle was so intense, Stuart couldn't control himself. He collapsed backwards, faces red as a blissful slumbering, gasping for air. Chris groaned as he felt the unbearably hot round splash and pooling up on his back, slowly dripping their sticky, juicy residue from both of his sides. It was a brief but intense match of Warzone assault, with Spiteful winning when he single-handedly destroyed Chris's base after penetrating his robust defenses. He felt tears trickling down his face as he struggled to catch his breath, collapsing onto the bed as his hands and knees gave way from underneath him.
Oh god.
When he woke up a few hours later, he saw Chris staring at him.
Good morning,
Dun, dun.
Stuart. I charged your phone for you.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it, Chris.
A few minutes passed, with the two looking at each other. Finally, Spiteful bit his lip and broke the awkward silence.
I'm grateful for this, Chris. I really am. But I need to tell you the truth. I made that first video to steal your audience, to try and tear down Xandril. He hurt my reputation, and I knew he works for you, so...
Chris quickly got up and sat down next to Stuart, casting a sickly pale hand onto his shoulder. Spiteful felt his heart rate double at the warm sensation of his hand.
I know.
I know.
I know.
You know, I'm taking full responsibility for this. This is all my fault. How can I make it up to you?
Nothing much. But the air is something you can do for me.
He said, licking his lips. He turned to face Spiteful and placed a hand on his thigh, slowly and gently moving it upwards.
Oh.
Before Chris could come up with a witty reply, Spiteful's lips silenced him. Chapter 6, HaloFollower. Although they had passes for the entire 5-day-long event that was Gamescom, Spiteful and HaloFollower had other plans for each other. On the first night, which is a particularly feisty and memorable one, Chris took out his throbby, veiny, and girthy Tartarus's gavel and showed Stuart something only a true Wreckmaster could possibly hope to accomplish. Spiteful licked his lips at the sight of it and bent down over the
Who the fuck played that?
Spiteful licked his lips at the sight of it and bent down over the bed. He bit his lip, drawing blood, but he didn't care. He was ready for the legendary...
It's gonna take us 10 years to get through this chapter.
He bit his lip, drawing blood, but he didn't care. He was ready for the level 9 legendary Rex.
Level 9 Rex available.
Next up on HaloFollower. Top 10 ways on how to destroy the enemy core. You won't believe what comes at number 4. Featuring iSpiteful.
What comes at 4?
Me!
Asked Spiteful.
No, you can just go again. Let's just do it again.
No, I'm not gonna
okay,
say.
Okay. Me!
No! The net's up on Halo.
What? Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Next up on HaloFollower. Top 10 ways on how to destroy the enemy core. For fuck's sake. I'm trying to read it like a fucking retard. Next up on HaloFollower. Top 10 ways on how to destroy the enemy core. You won't believe what comes at number 4, featuring iSpiteful.
What comes at number 4?
Me!
Roared Chris right before he began subjugating Spiteful's delicate core to a violent and relentless one-man assault. Wave after devastating wave of furious seduction deeply penetrated it until it was finally pulverized into a shattered and tender pulp. Chris gasped as his male lover unleashed a pleasured screech into the night, shattering the wine glasses of Mountain Dew they placed on the nightstand. On the final night, Stuart whipped something out that Chris didn't expect. Instead of the Nornfang he usually saw, he received another, much different kind of legendary wreck, a beam rifle Delta. Repetition was Stuart's specialty, and mixing it up for once was just as shocking as the sudden appearance of the Covenant sniper rifle. He stumbled backwards, tongue-struck, his mouth agape.
Whoa, I never thought I'd see this. The angle at which it tilts. Streaks of bright colors on the dark body of the rifle.
Chris's thoughts were cut short as Spiteful took advantage of his open mouth, feeding him the barrel of his legendary rack and blocking his air supply. Chris wasn't used to the might of this particular version of the beam rifle, and immediately found himself gagging as a singularity was launched down his throat. Overflowing with Stuart's wreck energy, he had no choice but to swallow the boiling hot plasma, gulping it down all at once.
Take a break if you need
We're not
to.
out of this yet. We can still destroy the enemy.
Chris looked up at him, coughing but grinning at the same time in satisfaction, wiping some of the slimy, viscous funk that was slowly dripping from the corner of his mouth. A few tears were running down his face, and he tasted a hint of blood at the back of his throat, but he didn't care.
Damn. It looks like it'll take some time before Stu sends another shockwave too.
Once again, his thoughts were cut off as Spiteful quickly swapped weapons and spawned in the whiplash. Chris's arms widened right before the two ends of the barrel were jammed directly into his mouth. Chris's eyes rolled to the back of his head as he started to faint. He smiled as his head lowered back, milky white residue overflowing from his mouth, proud of his man's wreck prowess.
Damn, I should have expected it. He uses the same techniques over and over. It's just like his content.
Sleep tight, my little Halo swallower.
Crooned Stuart as he stroked Chris's hair. Their time together was soon going to be over, and he was glad he made his final night memorable. He took his usual position directly behind Chris's quivering and unconscious body and slowly drifted to sleep. Chapter 7, No Respite.
I bought a one-way ticket.
Blurted out Chris the next morning as they got dressed. Spiteful looked at him, the words not truly registering.
What?
I didn't plan on leaving you.
Tears welled up in Spiteful's eyes. If there were any doubts that Chris didn't always love him, they were now gone. He hugged Chris, who kissed him on the cheek.
Let's go to the airport and go back to my house.
What about my car? I just can't leave it here.
You care about your ex?
Fair enough. So what now?
Well, I can take you around the city, show you around.
I'd like that.
When he heard this, Chris smiled and rested his head on Spiteful's chest, who was beginning to doze off. Chris stuffed all the negative thoughts to the back of his head. Like his lover always said, negativity was for the haters. He'll deal with them another time. For now, he just wanted to be with Stuart.
Hey, the end!
It really shows how much he knows Spiteful.
Dude.
That's adorable.
Good job, guys. Proud of you.